Canada's temporary foreign worker programs are the subject of a scathing report from the United Nations. The UN Special Rapporteur on Contemporary Forms of Slavery says the programs for foreign agricultural workers are, quote, a breeding ground for modern forms of slavery.
Who would have thought that modern-day slavery and Canada would be synonymous one day? Many might think it is over-exaggerated, but when we look into the Temporary Foreign Workers Program and see the reality of it, we come to the conclusion it's exploitative, unjust, and sucking the life out of Canada.
Across the country, people told him how they are facing abuse and exploitation, low wages, sometimes no wages at all, living in substandard housing.
The crisis has been brewing for some time, on the verge of reaching a tipping point. It seems the proverbial time bomb has detonated. The Temporary Foreign Workers Program has, instead of delivering benefits, emerged as a significant problem. And it's not only affecting the local population, immigrants too find themselves grappling with the unsettling aspects of the program. In today's video, we will talk about the Temporary Foreign Worker Program, and we'll tell how it is leading to modern-day slavery in Canada. The Temporary Foreign Worker Program is a questionable program run by the Canadian government that lets employers hire foreign workers to fill temporary job openings in certain industries. The program is meant to help Canadian businesses run smoothly and contribute to the overall economic growth of the country, but it's not without its problems. The Temporary Foreign Workers Program, or TFWP, exists because some industries in Canada don't have enough skilled workers to fill all the jobs. This can happen for a few reasons, like when there's a big demand for workers with certain skills, but not enough Canadian workers have those skills, or when jobs need workers for a short time, like during busy seasons. The TFWP is supposed to help with these problems by letting employers hire foreign workers to fill these jobs. For example, if we take the health sector, immigrants account for 1 in every 4 healthcare sector workers, making up a substantial portion of the workforce. In specific occupations, their presence is even more significant. For instance, 23% of registered nurses in Canada are immigrants, followed by 35% of nurse aides and related occupations, 37% of pharmacists, 36% of physicians, 39% of dentists, and a staggering 54% of dental technologists and related occupations. To use the TFWP, employers first have to prove that they can't find a Canadian worker to fill the job. They also have to promise to pay the foreign worker the same wage as a Canadian worker would get for that job. If they meet all the requirements, the government will give them a permit to hire a foreign worker. But the sad reality is that it's as if foreign workers in Canada are being taken advantage of, almost like a robbery in broad daylight. You see, these foreign workers come to Canada with big dreams, hoping to escape the difficulties they face in their own countries. But once they're here, things take a dark turn. First off, it's extremely tough for them to find a job, and when they finally get one, it often pays very little, which is just plain unfair. They work really hard, but instead of fair treatment, they face cruelty. Let us tell you about Guadalup Herrera, a temporary worker. Herrera works at a nursery, and technically he should get the same breaks, overtime pay, and working conditions as Canadian workers. But in reality, he often works for up to 15 hours without a break. To make matters worse, he and his colleagues have to sleep on the floor in cramped staff housing, sharing the space with rats and mice. It's like something out of the distant past where some people had it all and others suffered terribly. Is Herrera treated as if he's somehow less important than others? How did Canada become such an exploitative place? But that's not the end of the story, thanks to TFWP. In British Columbia, employers in different industries like farming, construction, food service, and cleaning are hiring temporary foreign workers more and more because there aren't enough Canadian workers. Here's the catch. These foreign workers can stay for up to 2 years, but their work permits are tied to a specific job and employer. So if they get fired, quit, or get injured and can't work, they might be sent back to their home countries. Plus, in British Columbia, they can be paid less than the minimum wage because their pay is based on a federal median wage, which is often not enough to live on. All these rules make foreign workers vulnerable to exploitation, and they're afraid to report any mistreatment. A report from March 2022 found that these workers face physical, emotional, sexual, and financial abuse, and they often have to live in crowded and lousy places. It's a real grim situation. The situation with foreign workers in Canada is not just bad, it's a system on the brink of collapse, marked by cruelty and barbaric practices. Employers are withholding wages, and both immigration consultants and employers are exploiting these workers by trying to charge illegal fees to get them temporary foreign work permits. To make matters worse, these workers have limited access to health care and rights since they are not technically Canadian citizens. Recently, we heard about an immigrant working at McDonald's in Canada who was harassed. It's a stark reminder that modern-day slavery exists even in a country that claims to champion liberal values and democracy. But the crisis doesn't end there. The temporary foreign worker program is a breeding ground for abuse. Workers endure a multitude of mistreatments. They arrive and their jobs vanish. Promised wages are never paid, and overtime goes unrewarded. They're forced to perform degrading tasks for their employers and are charged outrageous rates for subpar employer-provided housing. Racism and sexism run rampant in their workplaces, all while living under the constant threat of deportation if they dare to speak up. And when their employers no longer have any use for them, their permits expire and they are sent home, even if they spent up to a decade in Canada. It's a brutal form of modern-day slavery with no escape. But while immigrants face hellish conditions, locals are enduring an even more horrifying reality. The influx of international workers has triggered an endless nightmare of unaffordable housing. It's like a chorus of voices crying out about Canada's housing crisis for years, but it falls on deaf ears. Just think about it. The average cost of a home in Canada skyrocketed to a jaw-dropping 750,000 Canadian dollars by August, a mind-boggling 360% increase since the year 2000, when it was a mere 163,000 Canadian dollars. The nightmare intensifies in major cities like Toronto, where you practically need a six-figure income just to dream of owning a house. Shockingly, houses in Toronto and Vancouver now regularly sell for over $1 million Canadian dollars. What's even more dreadful is that many jobs, including skilled positions, are being handed over to immigrants instead of locals, often for lower wages, leaving the local population struggling to make ends meet. It's a dire situation that is pushing Canada's housing and employment landscape to the brink. When you exploit foreign workers and burden the healthcare system, the result is not horror, but a profound sense of injustice. Affordability becomes a distant dream for the locals. The reality of Canadian healthcare is a tale of comparative expense, a heavy toll on its citizens through prolonged waiting times, limited access to doctors, and essential medical technology. For instance, in 2019, a year before the pandemic, among 28 developed countries with universal healthcare, Canada ranked as the second highest spender on healthcare as a percentage of GDP, adjusted for age. Yet it stood disappointingly low in terms of key healthcare resources. Canada found itself in the 26th position out of 28 for physician availability, 25th out of 26 for acute care beds, and dead last, 27th out of 27 for hospital activity when measured as discharge rates from curative care. In a good democratic country, the focus should be on the lives and well-being of its people. But in Canada's modern-day house of exploitation, even the citizens can't secure decent health care. But the issue extends beyond health care now. The lives of Canadians are at stake. Foreigners arrive, claim local rights and jobs, and overburden the system. Some suggest that these foreigners might be contributing to an inflation crisis, and they might have a point. But the true culprits are the so-called liberals. Both locals and foreigners are being exploited by the government and their liberal policies. Canada seems to be slipping back into a dark age, reminiscent of a time when injustice was the norm, where might ruled over right, and words like equality and freedom were unheard. Are we reverting to a state of nature or a law of the jungle? It's a question no one seems to be able to answer. The common man cries out, but there's no one listening. It's a profoundly sad state of affairs. To learn more about how the temporary foreign worker program is part of the Canadian immigration Ponzi scheme, check out this video here. And if this video brought value to you, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing the video. Thanks for watching.